crap. Good afternoon, friends. I'd like to welcome you today to What's in Tegan's Storage Locker. It's the show that dares to ask the question, just what is in my storage locker? The answer today, well, the answer is comics. It's always going to be comics. I grab a fistful of comics from, here, there, and everywhere. We look through them on the camera. There's a little cat who has been quite full of himself for a good couple days. He actually defeated me yesterday. I set everything up to record, and usually I can manage to make a go of it, but after 45 minutes, I just couldn't get him to calm down. He has to let me record sometime. He has to get tired. But he sees me put all the accoutrements together, and he gets wound up. So, anyway, the first thing I'd like to do is point you in the direction of the Patreon. If you like this show, that's how you show your appreciation. That's how you tell me you want more of it and that you want me to do more of it. I got free downloads there. You can sign up for even just the free tier. Will get you occasional infrequent mailings and access to downloads on the site. Please do your best to help me spread the word. Tell all your friends. Distribute the links. Talk to people on the street. Tell them to watch the show so we can, pump those numbers a bit. All right, so Blackwulf. Man, I like Blackwulf. We've already looked at an issue of Blackwulf on this channel. I was hyping it up, and then I pulled an issue, and it just happened to be like the one issue of the run by a guest artist. But the reason I bought it, I enjoyed it. It was up my alley in all ways. But in hindsight, I think the primary appeal would have been Angel Medina's art, because the plot, well, in hindsight, like I say, the plot is kind of a bag of doorknobs from the Bronze Age, complicated, throwing a lot of characters at you. It's tied into the cosmic stuff and the history of Earth's deviant population, which, to be fair, is something that is a bit more familiar now because they've actually done a movie about it. Not a movie that everyone loved, but a movie that people still watched. In any event, it lasted, for its sins, all of 10 issues, despite having a pretty hot artist. I liked the story. It's very busy. In hindsight, I go back and flip through and I realize, man, they threw a lot of characters at us back in the day. All right, so, yeah, Angel Medina. He rose to prominence doing Warlock, some of the post-Infinity Gauntlet Warlock stuff. In fact, I think we've even looked at some of this on this channel before, if I recall correctly, early in our run here. So this is a Captain Crunch ad with early Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, because this is 94. So Power Rangers were only in the country for, I think, a year or so at that time. I was just a bit too old for Power Rangers. Just a bit too old. Oh, this is the time when they were doing subscription cards as cardboard, meaning that the book had this, it sort of made them more flimsy. Whatever. So, see, that's a nice opening page right there. In the farthest reaches of space, the hand of a space god reaches forth almost pleading. And there's this guy who is related to the Celestials somehow or other. Angel Medina penciling, Bill Anderson inking, Glenn Hurdling is the writer. Like I say, definitely a late Bronze Age and a mid-90s feel to it. But Angel Medina, he went on to work for Spawn, and or work for Todd McFarlane on Spawn. And McFarlane, he doesn't hire pikers. So clearly he identified this guy as knowing what was going on. because this is great stuff. Giant Man was in the book for a while too, so you know it had the real high wattage going on. Oh, you'll flip your lid for free Hero Caps game cards with Kids Mutant Meal only at Target. So you got to go to Target, and you got to go to the Target Delicatessen to get the tie-in Pogs, which I can't tell at that size if it's, it doesn't say if it's any artist in specific. Food Avenue at Target. All right, so they're doing something or other. Do not ask me to remember what is going on in this comic book at 3 decades removed. I remember I enjoyed it. I remember now I think it would read as a little bit fusty, but don't ask me to remember what's going on. Other than that there's women walking around in their underwear, and, you know, gotta have that. Oh, what was I saying about the Power Rangers? They took over the world one night in the early 90s. You, Blackwulf, you and me have got some unfinished business. But see how nice this looks? This is a very nice page. You have no clue who these people are. You will never know anything about what happens in this comic. Marvel reprints everything, and I doubt that they have reprinted this because no one ever used these guys again for anything. They established a whole separate underground kingdom for these people to be connected with. And other than, I think, appearing in Thor, they appeared in a few issues of Thor, but that was it, I think. But man, look at how nice this is. People back in 1994 didn't know what they were missing, because this is some great stuff. Look at how nicely this reads. One action leads to another. The shapes draw your eye downwards. This middle panel is used as sort of a cross effect to get your eye back to the bottom left here. Man, look at that. Perfect textbook. He knows what he's doing. There's a spaceship of some kind. Oh, they're on the Antarctic near the Savage Land. Birth of the monstrous starship Vimana. Pangaea's new monarch is also admiral of the Vimana, which has just received a most distressing status report. And here are the Skrulls, always doing something. That's the villain. Is he Tantalus? Was that the guy's name? Yeah, Lord Tantalus. He's an alien of some kind, and he's trying to get home, is it? I don't know. I don't remember. Like I say, it's a long time ago. Oh, and here's that 2 cardboard mailers. This is that Captain Universe, insert your child's name into the story mailaways. Which, frankly, I know Bob Budiansky, Jim Craig. I know 2 of those names. I totally should have got it, though, because it's got Rogue in it. Probably costs a pretty penny today. All right, so... Okay, so they're aboard the Skrull ship, and they're leaving that way. And... there's that dude from earlier in the book. Godstalker, enough said. Come back to that. Oh, that's a striking ad for the Avengers. That's Crystal. She doesn't have the headband that people usually identify her by. But that's, we looked at an issue of the Mike Deodato Avengers last episode. And that those were some nice looking comic books. Nicer than I think people would want to admit, considering that they're actually terrible. No bones about saying that. This is an ad for Get Up to Speed and Earth's Mightiest Heroes, monthly by Bob Harris, Tom Palmer, Bill Oakley, and new regular pencil Mike Deodato Jr., beginning in Avengers 380, September 1994. So they had just finished the big Gatherers story that had been multiple years, from like 90, I want to say they were laying the seeds for it in 91. It ended, I think, in early 94. So it was a long, long story. And then they went from that, it seems like, right into the Crossing. And then, straight down the cliff. And you couldn't say that the Crossing led directly to Heroes Reborn. But in hindsight, after the Crossing, they had to do something. So you can't say that that whole thing happened in a vacuum. It's not Mike Deodato's fault. Mike Deodato could have drawn some killer Avengers stories if killer Avengers stories had been in the offing in 1994, but they were not. What do we got? We got ads in the back here. Yeah, come on. Snack tin with all of the different Marvel cartoon characters at that point. Looks like Chris Sprouse. So, this is background information on Blackwulf. So these are some sketches. The Genesis of Two Teams, written by Glenn Herdling, illustrated by Angel Medina. Creating a whole new set of characters for a comic book series where several creators are involved is not as easy as it looks. The basic concept of the Underground and the Peacekeepers was devised by riotous Ralph Macchio. That was the editor? Yeah, editor. Once he served the ball to my court, tennis metaphors are always appropriate when talking about Ralph. I was free to tweak the characters any way I deemed fit. I wonder, what kind of a dig was that at Ralph Macchio? Did he play tennis, or was he a notorious hater of tennis? I don't know. I can't tell you. That's a level of scuttlebutt beyond even my capabilities. Then we sat down and volleyed ideas back and forth. When we were finally satisfied with what we had, Ralph brought in a new player. So this, you can see, they put a fair amount of work into this. This wasn't something that they just, put out on the stands. Multiple people contributed ideas. They came up with a lot of different characters. And it just, it died on the vine. There's no other way to put it. I don't know how I feel about doing the colored pencils over the black paper. Because in hindsight, and Godstalker, that really striking celestial dude, he was apparently designed by Scott McDaniel. That would have been right after Scott McDaniel started making waves on Daredevil. So, he was pretty hot for Marvel at the time. It's not like they didn't have anyone, but they really had to scramble. They had to scramble the back of the bench after Image left. I don't remember ever seeing that Hulk game for rent or anything. And I was going to go, 2 Captain Crunch ads. 2 Captain Crunch ads in the same issue. I had to stop buying Captain Crunch. It's no good for me. Come on. Okay, this is really kind of starting to get me. All right, bullpen bulletins. So this is, it's 1994. This is when the coyote is walking off the cliff and has yet to look down because the industry has imploded. The direct market has taken a huge blow. Newsstands are really starting to contract. And they're still publishing enough books, a large enough now on sale for 1993. And this stuff, there's just not enough buyers for all these comic books. You look back and there's a number of books in the same bucket as Blackwulf, as maybe even decent stuff that they just threw out that there just wasn't an audience for. Clandestine, this was when they tried to launch Alan Davis's Clandestine. This was the Conan the Adventurer, the last Marvel attempt at an ongoing, had early Raphael Kayanan art. Kind of interesting in hindsight, but just if Conan could sell in 1994, that wasn't what was going to do it. He didn't have a good 90s. There's no sugarcoating that. Ghost Rider 2099. This was after the early Bacalo Buckingham issues. Kyle Hotz did an issue, and then Ashley Wood did the last bit of it. So that was a stacked series, art-wise. I think we even looked at some of the Ashley Wood. Ghost Rider 2099. Gorgeous, gorgeous. G.I. Joe 154. Well, that was like 2 issues away from cancellation. End of an era right there. Incredible Hulk 423. Gary Frank is still on it. He's still on it for 2 issues. I've said before, the Gary Frank Hulk, cannot recommend it highly enough. Just about my favorite Hulk. And after him was Liam Sharp, and Liam Sharp's run on Hulk was kind of abbreviated. He said himself that he was dissatisfied with it. And Liam Sharp was actually succeeded by none other than Mr. Angel Medina. So, maybe this book didn't sell, but people paid attention, within the company at least, to how nice it looked. They were launching books on the Marvel Action Hour characters. Now, the interesting thing about the Marvel Action Hour books is that the Fantastic Four one was drawn by Alcatena. So, yeah, that's one to look for. Enrique Alcatena drawing Fantastic Four in a cartoon book. Man, there were multiple New Warriors books shipping, Nova and Justice. That was a Justice Limited series. This was the period with the Marvel Superheroes magazine. I've talked about the magazines in the past. We did the 2 videos on the Elektra magazines where I go into detail about the magazine program. They were still doing the Sabretooth Classics, which I think had a good year. It was basically like the first 12 or 14 appearances by Sabretooth. Savage Sword of Conan was towards the end of its run. Still had John Buscema on it. Spider Clone Wants Vengeance on Venom. There's a 90s description for you. Pat O'Leaf was doing the last run of Warlock and the Infinity Watch. Wolverine Evolution by Nocenti Teixeira. I don't remember that at all. That's one to look for. Either of those names, but both of those names together, that's one I want to see. I don't remember that at all. Dark Phoenix Saga, new printing of it, It's Back from the Ashes. See, that's one that, even back when they didn't keep trades in print, they still tried to keep that one in print at least. All right, so how are we doing? Oh, we're making a good time here. We're making good time. How about some Lobo? We looked at some Lobo in the first few episodes. We haven't looked at some Lobo in a while. I got tons of Lobo. Or especially the early years of Lobo, jam-packed good people. Good people wanted to work on Lobo because Lobo sold. And Lobo was a lot of fun to do. Cover by Dan Brereton. Nice cover. This is Giffen and Grant, who wrote most of the early Lobo stuff. Keith Giffen, Alan Grant. And Dennis Cowan. I don't know if Dennis Cowan did more Lobo, but he did this Lobo. This is a great Lobo. This is about, well, it's about Lobo having sex. There's no other way to put it. Oh, Peter Cannon Thunderbolt. Where did I say? Oh, yes. One of the chapters of Bloodlines we did last week had the artist who ended up doing the run on this book, which I don't remember ever seeing a copy. Might be worth looking, though, because that Mike Collins, he's a name from 2000 AD. This is the same month as Eclipso was raging, because this is Hawkworld Annual 3. Hawkwoman eclipsed, ravages Chicago. Can Hawkman stop her, or will he become an Eclipso victim himself? Robin Annual number 1. Anarchy eclipsed. Robin must face him alone. Deathstroke the Terminator 14. You know, for some reason, once, just out of the blue, I decided to read the entire run of the Deathstroke series, because I don't care for the Titans. I've covered that. The characters never really did anything for me. But for some reason, just out of the blue, I think I was depressed. I decided I'm just going to read the whole run of Deathstroke. I remember nothing about it. Nothing at all. He hung out with an old dude named Wintergreen, who was kind of his microchip. I think that was the series where they nuked a fictional Middle Eastern country, and that's about all I remember from it. I must have been depressed. So, man, Dennis Cowan. I don't remember the name of this character, but this was, I think, a character who showed up a few times. She ran a bail bonds and unisex salon. So she was someone who sent work Lobo's way, and Lobo was usually kind to people who put him in the way of paydays. Ramona, that's her name. Man, look at this, 3 pages in, and already, like, this is Dennis Cowan coming on, I mean, at his prime, coming off years of The Question, a little over a year on Deathlock with Dwayne McDuffie, and he's either just about to start or has already started his run on, not going to have any house ads for it, started his run on Hardware for the young Milestone Media. He probably started Hardware by now. So he was in an imperial phase, shall we say, and in a perfect position to do, a nice prestige Lobo project, because Lobo got A-list talent. People bought Lobo, so they had no trouble getting decent artists to do. If you're ever wondering why you look back at old Lobo, why they got so many good people to do it, it's because it sold. This guy had a following. He had shooters. He still has shooters. Blazing Chain of Love, and I don't know what he's doing, but he's going somewhere on that's not a bike, that looks more like a roadster. Wives Are Us? Pet Cemetery 2, that's not one that people necessarily remember that well. Anthony Edwards, Clancy Brown? It's 2 decent names, at least in terms of, horror movie sequel. Anthony Edwards, that would have been, I think, wasn't he in ER? So he's doing something or other. He's stomping, because that's, it's basically just Bugs Bunny ultraviolence. That's Giffen's just about his favorite thing in the world, is to do slapstick violence like this. It didn't always sell as well. I don't know how Trencher sold, but The Heckler, The heckler was perhaps the most distilled illustration of that tendency, but it's where Lobo comes from as well. What in the name of Fetal's jockstrap? How many wives has this clown got? Oh, so he's got to go through some guy's harem? Over 12,000 serviced. Oh, good. Yeah, see, what was I just telling you? And this comic, actually, there's a quote from this comic that has stayed in my head for years and has become a piece of my vocabulary. I'll tell you when we get there. Oh, these Star Trek Next Generation cards, they just had stills from the shows. Very square, but you know, Star Trek fans, they will eat that stuff up with a fork and say, "Thank you, ma'am, may I have another?" So there's security at the checkpoint, and clearly Lobo's not having any of that. He just knocks that guy's head off with one shot. He's got this frag gun. No balls, that's their trouble. Oh, eunuchs, there you go. Suffering meatballs, this place is bigger than a major city. This could take me weeks. Oh, don't smoke the grass. Short arms inspection next 2 miles. Holy fraggeroli, I don't believe it. I don't know if you can quite see the detail if you're seeing it really small on your phone, but all of the buildings, oh my goodness, yes, all of the buildings have what appear to be phallic structures on the top. One for every wife. This creep must be hung and then some. That's fat consolation if you're impotent. You know, that's the dialogue. Hello, sailor. In a hurry, are we? Well, I should be. Then again, nobody tells the main man when he's got to hurry, not even me. Ah, well, what the hell. Pucker up, babe. You got the Romeo of the Spaceways on a honey run. And there's a panel with a train entering a tunnel, rockets lifting off, fireworks, and a toilet being plunged. I haven't read this in decades. According to her, the man of the house ain't been able to get it on or up for nearly 3 years. Best go careful, Bo. This could present some problems. So then a woman jumps him into a bush. Ah, well, what the hell. And there's another little panel with a dude eating a sandwich, an oil well gushing, and a flower with hearts. For close on 3 days, he was lost in that most erogenous of zones, wandering dazedly from tent to welcoming tent, until at last, 214, oh, well, what the hell's later? So, he's walking in a walker. As I was saying earlier, ah, well, what the hell, proved to be an enduring part of my vocabulary. So, the women are running after him. A horde of bikini-clad babes are running after him to get him. And he has reached his limit. He cannot take any more, so he loads his 69 millimeter Trank stun semi-automatic. So you see he's putting all the stun darts. Has a little arrow just so you see the stun dart sticking out of the woman's butt. Like it ain't as if I ain't regularly mobbed by bucks and buttes. Seen your dreams, suckers. Swinging his piece like some mutant bodily extension, the main man's finger tightened on his trigger. He sighed, then squeezed and squeezed, and kept on squeezing. But still they came at him, hot, moist flesh pressed in from all sides. They were love-starved babes in heat. Oh my. And his horse was long since bolted. A lesser being would have crumbled, wilted in the face of the passion attack, lain down and surrendered to their overpowering desires. But Lobo never blinked, never faltered. He just pointed his gun and shot, shot, shot. Oh, and here's the dictionary definition of misogynist. One who hates women. A hatred of women, vanished under the influence of her beauty and charm, as opposed to misandry. But bump pish. There's a... Oh, well, that's a... They could do... I don't know, man. They could do better to sell these guys. With many more to follow in 92 and 93. What date was this? Was this 90... Oh, September 1992. So Def Leppard already, I don't know how good their 90s were. They don't look very enthused to be on the road in 92. All right, Messenger to See You, Oh Great Limp One. So, you know. Shouldn't have pushed it, babes. Enough's as good as a feast, right? Total chaos explodes in the Titans universe. Watch as the team of the 90s. Whoa, the team of the 90s. That's really saying something there. The Team Titans #1. This had the gimmick of different interiors. I have one that has a few pages from Adam Hughes in it, and that's the only one I had, and it's one of only 2 issues of the Team Titans I have, the other one being the Bloodlines crossover. New Titans was up to 90 at this point. They were about to marry Nightwing, or at least they had a wedding issue. People do not speak kindly of the later run on this book. So he's just climbing over this. So he has to find one of them. These tranks last only a day. These chicks are going to finish me off. I'm doomed. Oh, so he had to find one? Oh, see, I'm not even following the plot here. Plot. Yes, I know. And now a word from our Bastich. What do you mean high risk? I was protected, right? I'm always protected. I carry him right next to my favorite gun. Well, there you go. This was also, I think, I want to say the context of this is that this was near maybe there was a pretty famous AIDS and safe sex pamphlet with Death and John Constantine in it, I want to say. I think I have it somewhere in a box. They printed it in a few places. Maybe that was the same period that this came out. It was part of a initiative or something. See, The Heckler, there you go. And that's pretty much a series that would never have existed if it weren't for the success that Giffen had with Lobo here. DC did very good by Keith Giffen. Batman Night Cries. Now for something completely different. Batman Night Cries, Archie Goodwin and Scott Hampton. There's a copy of that in the Batman by Archie Goodwin trade. It is definitely worth seeing because it's got extraordinarily beautiful Scott Hampton art on it, but it is not a story you're going to want to read more than once. It's very dark, very dark. Guy Gardner, that was a odd series. It lasted long enough for him to get turned into an alien. loses even that ring. He had Sinistro's ring for a while. Oh, there's Chris Sprouse. I just mentioned him. I don't remember this at all. 9-issue limited series in DC's new format. Do not remember that at all. Although, early Chris Sprouse, if I see it, I might pick it up. Oh. Now, on the one hand, this is Eduardo Barreto. So if you see this Martian Manhunter series, it's probably good reading for that reason. We'll just pass over any other information regarding it. Oh, Single White Female. That's a fun movie. I remember enjoying that one because it's got two very good people in it. Bridget Fonda and Jennifer Jason Leigh. All right, was that it? Was there anything else? No. All right, well, I'm sure that'll get me demonetized completely. What's next? What's next? All right. How about some Spider-Man? And not just any Spider-Man, mind you. Sal Buscema Spider-Man. It does not get any better than this. The Sal Buscema run on Spider-Man is one of the great Spider-Man runs of all time, even if the very end of it is blighted a little bit by the early stages of the Clone Saga. That's also the same run of books where Sal Buscema is inked by Bill Sienkiewicz. I've spoken about that run many times. It's one of the best-looking runs in Marvel history because it's coming as a climax to what was, let me see, 6 years run on Spider-Man by Sal Buscema. And it saw his style evolve considerably because he was inking himself mostly at this point. And he went through a couple different phases on this book. He went through the early years of this book, which is where this issue is from, where he's using a lot of fine line, almost like, I'd say, Gil Kane in his inking. You can see it looks like a nib he's inking with. Later on, someone just decided to be a part of the process here. Later on, he starts using the brush a little bit more, and I think that's where you see the Miller come out, because I definitely think Buscema was someone who read and appreciated Miller. I think his later work especially, you see a receptiveness to influences like that. I've come to prefer Sal to his brother in just about every way. I think Sal is an extraordinarily underrated artist because he's someone who really only got interesting in the later part of his career, because he was always decent. He was always good. But in the mid-'80s, he got a kick to the pants, and he decided he actually wanted to be in the mix. And he spent the later years of his career as a penciler. He doesn't pencil anymore. I think he still does inking, but he doesn't pencil anymore. So he spent the later years of his career as a penciler really changing his style, growing in a way that is not necessarily appreciated as well as it could be, because this is dynamite work. Now, he had a couple different writers during his run on the book, and this is from the first writer he worked with, Gerry Conway. Later on, he works with J.M. DeMatteis, and they're both very good runs. I'd give the edge to the J.M. DeMatteis run simply because I think it's one of the best Spider-Man runs ever. This is maybe, it's maybe not the first Gerry Conway run when people think of Gerry Conway's Spider-Man. I think it was, I want to say it's possible he left this book early. I don't know off the top of my head, however, because early, like 90, 91, Conway leaves Marvel pretty much entirely because he starts selling scripts in TV, and he gets a job for the Father Dowling Mysteries. And it just, it wasn't worth his time to write Spider-Man comic books anymore, with that as his day job. Well, I just had to go throw the ball around for the cat, because he was getting too irascible otherwise. What was I talking about? I was talking about Gerry Conway. He left the company right after this, not too long after this. He was actually supposed to, I found this out just the other day, he was actually supposed to take over one of the Punisher titles. But then he left for TV, and that was history. The rest was history. The first Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles NES game, which was not a port of the arcade game. It would be a while before they got a port of the arcade to home entertainment. So the plot here is that Joe Robertson has been put in jail for something or other. I don't remember. He gets freed from jail not too much longer, but there's a escape plot where this is back when him and Tombstone. This is not that long after Tombstone premiered, and so him and Tombstone had a big hate on against each other, and still to this day, when Tombstone appears, Joe Robertson is sometimes there as well. They're people who hate each other from when they were small children. So And there's, look at how nice this Spider-Man looks. Look at this. Such an interesting, you can tell he's at this point looking at what Todd McFarlane is doing, because that's not how Sal Buscema would ever have drawn Spider-Man like 5 years ago, with all this surplus webbing around. No, the fistful of webbings, that was definitely a Todd McFarlane thing that everyone started to adopt. So look at how nice this reads. Look at how nice this reads. You've got very standard issue 1940s gangster. So I guess they're working for Hammerhead, because that was his whole gimmick. Bubble Bobble. Never played that. Oh, Sears catalog ad for the Nintendo. You notice all the ads suddenly? Well, there's another D&D ad on the back, cover, of course. But Tengen, even this was a Nintendo. They did Nintendo cartridges without the Nintendo seal of approval. Oh, wait a minute. Yeah, there's a Nintendo seal of approval. Do they still do the Nintendo seal of approval? The Nintendo seal of approval was a big deal when you were a kid. I remember once I was going to buy a Tengen game once. Gauntlet. I think I bought Gauntlet. I could never make hide nor hair of it. I tried to figure out how to play it, but for some reason, I never really got the hang of it. But I remember asking the clerk, well, this game doesn't have the Nintendo seal of approval. Is it going to work? And he assured me that it would still work. Oh, look at how nice this looks. I mean, Hammerhead's kind of a schmuck, but so J. Jonah Jameson, he appears and tells Spider-Man to get over there somehow. Oh, and here's, oh goodness, this was Mary Jane's niece, Christy, who was a supporting character for a few years. She had a heart attack, mouth soaked with blood, because she had an eating disorder. That was the big drama there. Someone found their little rattly ball without me. So back in the prison, back in Lewisburg Federal Penitentiary, or is it federal or? Yeah, federal. He's in the Fed. So these inmates, they have these weird guns that shoot little stakes with foot. So they're getting this big guy, and the big guy was the one who was protecting Joe. And now Joe locked him into this cell, and Tombstone, he's not worried about the guards. He's got the run of the place to himself, and he just has to wait until Joe gets out of there. And then he says, no hurry, I'm a patient man. See, another Nintendo game. Westfield Company of Wisconsin. Try to remember I saved your life, Web Slinger. Why, I don't know. Me neither. Oh, come on, you two love each other. So, wait a minute. Oh, is it the chameleon? I'll bet you it's the chameleon because he just got, J. Jonah Jameson just took out this hypodermic, and that's a nice sequence where he gets it out. And so just after, Spider-Man takes care of these mob goons, and then he's not worried about Jonah because Jonah's not like Jonah's going to attack him, except, there you go, Jonah just attacked him. And that must be the chameleon who did that, pretending to be Jameson. That's a nice sequence right there. So, Tombstone's just waiting him out, even though this guy's bleeding. So even though Bruiser just got bled, and they bandage the wounds with their t-shirts, but they can't stay in the cell forever, so they open it up, and Bruiser, he's got to fight Tombstone. I think Tombstone kills him, or puts him in the hospital at least. So there's the Hammerhead's one trick, hitting you with his head. And so they're intercutting these two fights here. Joe is pleading like, Tombstone, come on, you're going to kill this guy. He's like, if Bruiser don't want to fight, we don't fight. You want to quit? All you got to do is kiss my... Bam! There you go. Another Nintendo ad. Another Nintendo ad. Man. You feel that. Crack. Batam. And Spider-Man, he's been drugged, but he's still doing slightly better against Hammerhead. Slightly better. Well, he ends up in a pile of mannequins. Or art easels. I don't know where he is. Man, look at how nice this sequence is. You can really see his eye for body language. Spider-Man getting up after getting his butt whomped. Because really, when it comes down to it, Hammerhead, he's strong, but he's not a mutant or anything. He's just a normal, strong guy with a weirdly shaped head. More of a Dick Tracy thing. Oh man, look at this. Ooh. Good for you, Bruce. You got your wish. Is he, what, dead? Oh, yeah. Time we had a talk, Robbie boy. Just you and me, man to man. Real men die for a little self-respect. That's something you can't understand, Robbie, pal. So Spider-Man's getting his butt kicked. It's a great day whenever Spider-Man gets his butt kicked. Next issue, the Puma still owes Spider-Man a debt of honor, and he means to pay it off even if he must kill the wall crawler to do so. But first, pick up the follow-up to this issue's tale in Web of Spider-Man number 54, in which Spider-Man comes face-to-face with J. Jonah Jameson. Like I say, I'm betting that's the chameleon, if I recall correctly. And in Amazing Spider-Man 319, Justin Hammer sends the Rhino and Blacklash after the double-crossing Scorpion, and guess who's caught in the middle? Also, our Atlantis Attack storyline continues in the Amazing Spider-Man Annual 23, in which the sensational She-Hulk teams up with the Webhead to bring down a rampaging abomination. And if I recall correctly, there was a bullpen bulletins page. Oh, a tiny Stan soapbox. Oh, and he's talking about the death of Frank Gayakoa. I think I've heard it pronounced correctly. Gayakoa, February 4th, 1989. 2 new staffers recently climbed aboard the good ship Marvel. Say hello to lilting Lisa Truciani, who will be sizzling Sid Jacobson's assistant. Ravishing Renee Witterstatter, who will assist Craig Anderson. Suzanne Gaffney. Oh, wow. Okay, and while we're in the welcoming mode, let's hear it for the new crew we have comprising our editorial administration pool, assisting Two-Fisted Tom D and Madcap Mark G in managing Command Central are scintillating Suzanne Gaffney, Mellow Marie Javins, and effervescent Evan Skolnick. Mellow Marie Javins. I wonder, does she still go by Mellow? Oh, always so interesting to run across her name in all these old comic books. She really, she really came out of nowhere. So this is a profile of Sarah Tuchinski here. She was a assistant editor at the time. She also wrote a Scarlet Witch story for Marvel Fanfare, inventory story for Powerline. They did inventory stories for Powerline. Plus tons of letters, pages, and a crossword puzzle for Captain America versus the Asthma Monster. I've never seen a page from Captain America versus the Asthma Monster before. All right, so what do we got going here? Time enough for one more something or other. One more something or other here. How about... Okay. How about an issue of Jack Kirby's Fourth World by John Byrne? With a cover by Walter Simonson. Now, of course, this is May 97. This run would last a good couple of years, and then I think the next attempt at the Fourth World book, because they had a Fourth World book for pretty much the entirety of the 90s. They had a Fourth World book on the stands, but they kept having to cancel it and restart it, and then they'd get a couple more years out of it with different creators. So John Byrne had a couple years on the book, and then he was succeeded by Walter Simonson, who got a couple years out of an Orion solo book. And it's the only time anyone's ever tried an Orion solo book, but it's an excellent run. One of the best examples of latter-day Jack Kirby stories. Now, this maybe isn't one of the better remembered latter-day Jack Kirby stories. It's, I think the best thing John Byrne did with the Fourth World characters was the Dark Side Galactus crossover, which, I'll probably read on the channel at some point, because it's a good comic. It is genuinely, I think, a pretty fun story. But, like a lot of people who have tried to do the New Gods since Kirby, he's run into the wall. Well, back to the wall. Run into the wall of the fact that they're not necessarily supposed to be ongoing characters. I think it's definitely, you know, a story that had an ending in mind. And Jack Kirby even came back and did that ending in the 80s with the Hunger Gods. Pardon me. But the fact is that they still have to sell comic books. So they just end up doing more dancing, so to speak. I remember this had some, it didn't look bad. I still bought it because I still like John Byrne's art. But in hindsight, yeah, they got a crossover out of this, a big intercompany crossover called Genesis. And it is one of the worst crossovers you've ever read in your life. They took a month of every book in the line to tell this story. And I couldn't tell you the first thing about anything that happens in it, other than that there's a big wave of energy that Darkseid unleashes across the universe. I think that's it. That's all I remember, the big hook there. And this was Amalgam, the second month of the Amalgam books, because it worked so well the first time that a year later they came back and did another day of Amalgam. And this had the Super Soldier World War II book and Bat Thing, Generation Hex, Iron Lantern, Lobo the Duck. This is the Thorian of the New Asgods title that was really, really super influential for John Romita Jr.'s later style. Doing that book, I think, changed the direction of his career. Certainly when you get to his Thor in like the year, 2 years after this. All right, so written and drawn by John Byrne. He's already into using computer-generated graphics for some of his stuff, and yeah, sometimes it worked better than others. This isn't terrible. I would have preferred a John Byrne drawing of Apocalypse. That probably would have taken less time for him to do, knowing what I know about illustration with computers in the 90s. But, you know, it's kind of funky, you know, it looks kind of interesting for all that. So here's your crew. There's Granny Goodness and Kanto sitting around yakking with Darkseid. So what had happened at this point was that I don't know how this was supposed to work. This confused me every day. The New Genesis and Apocalypse were merged into one world. What happened to the other half of the world? I don't know. This was Highfather brought about the fusion of Apocalypse and New Genesis. I don't remember how or why, but that was the thing they had in their status quo for a little while. All right, they already got the first generation of PlayStation ads. Something's doing here. Marvel's Tiger, who's just an angry red-headed woman. So, you know, New Genesis and... oh, here we go. Imagine that power wave rippling out across the young cosmos, wherever it touched, wherever it passed, across a planet capable of bearing life. See, this is supposed to be the origin of life in the DC universe, is a Genesis wave from the home of the new gods. And the Genesis crossover is about another Genesis wave. So you have a month of everyone's powers going haywire. And that's it. That's the gimmick. We'll come back to that. Oh, there's this Tachyon fellow who was an attempt to create a new character in the Fourth World mythos. I don't remember anything about him. He was something to do with the Source. I think he's from the run before the Byrne run, so he stuck around for a little while after his creation, at least. Another PlayStation ad. See, the wheel turns, just different video game ads. Oh, see, this looks nice. That looks nice. This effect of, I don't know, they're Scott-Free and Big Bart are doing some exploring and with the help of the Forever People. Another PlayStation ad. Rallycross. Oh, they're going to the wall. The wall of the source. Something to do with Thor and Odin, because this is DC. Well, it seems like we're looking at an issue of the Sandman that had Odin in it. This is the version of Thor and Odin that live on New Genesis. Because this is comics. I guess that they just don't want to make it easy for us. Oh, Scud the Disposable Assassin. He had a video game on Sega Soft. So this was a computer game based on the indie comic that is still spoken of fondly in some quarters. I never warmed to it myself. Oh, this is Phase 2 of Helix, which did not last very long. I want to go back and find some of these books because no one was buying these. They weren't ordering very many copies of them. But Garth Ennis did a series with Carlos Ezquerra. Dave Gibbons did a whole series of these Dome books, which you're thinking, like, wait a minute, the Dome, that's a Stephen King thing. Stephen King did the Dome. Like, no, Dave Gibbons did the Dome first, my friend. Transmetropolitan, which ended up being the one Helix book that survived and went to Vertigo, and it was more or less. And from that point on, Vertigo, it seemed like they did more sci-fi books. Simply because they'd proven the point that Helix, they weren't going to be able to launch a second Vertigo. They were doing a Michael Moorcock, one of a couple of different Michael Moorcock series in the 90s. Topps did, actually looked at one of the Topps Michael Moorcock books on the TikTok, like half a year ago. And this Mount Howarth Star-Crossed book, 3 issues. I wish I could go back and find all of those except for Transmetropolitan. I read all the Transmetropolitan I need to read. So they're doing, pardon me, they're doing something or other. So they actually succeed in getting the guy out of the source. Well, whatever. Next issue, The Seeds of Darkseid's Long Scheming have borne fruit. So you see, it's not what I'd call, what's the word? It's not great. It's readable. This was like, $1.95 a month. I was still following Byrne. Tales of the New Gods. So this is a Byrne going back and doing stories about the characters' pasts. Later on, I want to say they'll get other artists to do. Maybe that's a separate volume, but they do have a series where like Leif Fell and Eddie Campbell do, and Steve Ditko do different New Gods backups. Yeah, so it's just New Gods people doing New Gods things. What? Do you mind? This is literally our last book. You just need to be quiet for 4 more minutes. 4 more minutes. Classic Byrne. That pretty much sums up issue 13 of New Gods. Oh, so this is actually the second. Byrne was doing New Gods right before this, and then they relaunched it as Fourth World. So apparently they had faith in him on this book, because people like me were buying it. So I don't recognize any of those names. Advertising the Azrael Ash crossover, which is actually kind of interesting because 2 characters co-created by Joe Quesada. Possibly the last time. Do you mind? Possibly the last time he drew the Azrael character. Yet another PlayStation ad, Carnage Heart. And I want to say there was do you mind? Those are not for you. Someone has suddenly decided that they wanted to play with the pile of comic books. That's not a good thing. Where was it? Oh, yeah. Watch This Space, number 40. Yeah, they just launched the Adventures in the DC Universe book, which was basically just a DC Universe character anthology done in the style of the Batman Adventures books, which I loved. It was one of my favorites. Every month they did it. Probably, almost certainly, end up looking at some of it at some point, somewhere. The 17-minute movie comedy Meat, directed by Wonder Woman, Flash, and Impulse assistant editor Jason Hernandez Rosenblatt, made it to the Slamdance Film Festival, held in Park City, Utah. The movie, with roles played by DCers Kevin Dooley, Chuck Kim, Frank Pittarese, Chris Eads, and our new mom, Ali Morales. Come on, honey. Well, I apparently need to go run around with him for a few moments. Sovereign 7 was up to 22. Oh man, maybe we need to look at Sovereign 7 one of these days. I don't know if we've been bad enough. All right, so that's a decent enough show, if you don't mind getting interrupted by the small cat part of the program. Check out the Patreon. There's free downloads there for you right now. Sign up for the free tier for infrequent mailings. The Patreon is how you show your appreciation, how you show you like this show, how you want to see more of it, despite its many technical challenges of filming under fire here. I got daily comic book reviews up on TikTok and Instagram. I'm flashing the card up on the screen here. I have a lot of fun doing them. People seem to like them, so check them out. I got a podcast with Claire Napier. It's called Udder Madness. We talk about Top Cow Comics. That's Witchblade, The Darkness, Cyberforce, Fathom, Mark Silvestri, Michael Turner, all that good stuff. We have a lot of fun doing it. It's on Patreon. It's on Spotify. It's on YouTube. So, check it out. What else? There's got to be something else. Well, just, check out the Patreon again. Have a great day. Be kind to yourself. Be kind to others. Be kind to the world around you, small children and animals. Have a great day.